Hello and welcome to the Innovation and Learning Series number 16, we think. The place on the internet where innovation and learning meet. Today we're going to talk about hosting ebooks. Where can you put all these amazing books that our kids are creating and writing and working on, where they're available? We've been looking at different options, and during a Twitter chat, Sheldon Bradshaw's name came up, or he threw his name out there. He has an amazing project called WriteNow Books. So he's going to tell us a little bit about that, and then we're just going to kind of throw some ideas around and make sure we all have an understanding, and then we'll just talk about whatever we feel like talking about. So let's do introductions. We'll start from my left, which is David, all the way on the left.
Yeah, I'm David Beatty, the Director of Technology at the International School of Stavanger in Norway.
Maureen.
Okay, great. I'm Maureen Cullen. I'm the Middle School Technology Coordinator at the American Embassy School in New Delhi.
Paula.
And I'm not really in a fog.
Paula.
Next? Hey, hi everyone. I'm Paula. I teach middle school English in Singapore at the United World College Southeast Asia, the East Campus. Hello, happy to be here.
Sheldon.
I'm Sheldon Bradshaw. I'm the IT Director at the International School of Prague.
Hey, I'm Ben.
I'm Mark.
Oh, sorry, I jumped the key.
I was going to do me and then to you.
All right, go ahead.
I'm Marcello Mongardi. I'm middle school technology coach at the American International School of Muscat in Oman. And today's host, Ben.
Co-host Ben Sheridan. I am instructional designer at University of Kentucky and soon to be digital learning coach at NIST in Bangkok.
Awesome. Sheldon, do you want to, we were talking the other day, you know, what's it like to get your books on iTunes? And then Warren, Apple had talked about getting them on the Kindle store, and then your project came up. Can you tell us a little bit about like where it started and why and where it is and how it can be useful?
Right. Let me go back to the history on this a little bit. This started a few years ago. I was at Sinarmas and Jakarta World Academies in Indonesia, and that school, Jane Ross was working there, and it was the first school to have a student-published book on the Apple iTunes store. So lots of great stuff was coming out of there, but getting stuff published to the Apple Store back then was really painful. Whether it was having the ID, having things proved, which words you could and couldn't use, were you allowed to use the term iBook, things like that. And so it was a several-month process to get student work on the store. And that just didn't seem right. We had lots of great content that was coming out and people weren't publishing it. And so we started thinking, what are we really looking for? And it was basically like a YouTube for books was the goal. And so our director at the time, John McBride, had some great vision, and he said, we need to build our own, and we want 1,000 books in there. And so it started off as the WriteNow 1,000 project. And then, okay, that project became mine, and how do you make this work when you've got people publishing in PDFs and .mobi files and .iba files, and how do you actually make all of this work? And then we started getting into things like what do we believe about editing and copyright, and how do we keep this all going? And so the project took off. So in a nutshell, that's really where this all came from. The goal was to give people a place to publish their work authentically. And started off with students, but then also grew into staff as well. It has gotten a little bit easier to publish to the Apple's iBook store, but it's still not particularly easy. A few things that come up with this is we're at an international school, and so how do we foster the process when we're in the Czech Republic, that and at the time in Indonesia, that didn't have an official Apple Store presence. But then we've got parents where one parent's from Singapore, the other one's from the Netherlands, we're in Indonesia, whose store do you publish to? And why are we holding a kid who's 7 years old working in their third language to a native speaker who's 35 with multiple degrees for the same editing levels? And that's pretty much what Apple was doing across the board, and they have to with a big formal store like that. And so how do we level the playing field and give everyone that authentic platform to publish? And so what we ended up doing is we wrote our own, and it started off pretty basic, and we're on, I think, about the 3rd revision so far. Now, one of the challenges where this school is it went through some tough times and a lot of staff left, so most of the core supporters of the project have scattered, but it's also spread the project a little bit as well. So I think we're up to 12 schools and almost 800 books right now.
Wow.
And most of these are student books. There are some staff books as well. And we started seeing some really interesting things as the project started to grow. We had a PD day, and the staff decided they wanted to have a shared potluck lunch. And so everyone brought in chili. Someone went around and collected all of the recipes, and they made a chili book. And so that was one of our first books that was out there. We started finding our language teachers were writing bilingual travel books in Chinese and English. And then our lower level Chinese teachers were picking them up, and they started using these middle school and upper school created books as a primary resource for the lower elementary. And so we started seeing some really interesting cross-pollination of ideas just based on other people's writing. We did have some tough things to address. One of them is editing, and there's different philosophical beliefs on what you should publish online and to what level of editing and what level of perfection needs to be out there. And so it's the same with language and things like that. So what we've done is we haven't really gone for the YouTube model where anyone can publish anything. We've gone sort of more of a teacher tube model where any school who wants to participate, we're happy to have you, and we leave a lot of those decisions up to you. And so we don't have the students publishing, we have the teachers publishing on behalf of the students. And so what that does is that gives us a level of control that some adult has seen it and hopefully can flag any copyright issues that are there, but also that you get to have that discussion internally. Do you want everything to be edited to a very high level, or do you want to get to the point where that 7-year-old who's again in their 3rd language, this level of editing is enough, and there's going to be mistakes out there, and we're okay with that because it's your school's name that goes with that. What we found is any time we were coming up with our own answers at the project level for this, there was a lot of schools that wasn't going to work for. And so that's how we've sort of left it. And so schools where there's 1 or 2 teachers and 20 kids, 1 teacher publishes. Schools where they might have 500 students, they can put in 10 or 15 teachers. It really doesn't matter, the numbers. But this gives a little bit of a school oversight to what gets published on there. We're adding more and more features, and we're at the point we're just about ready to do a major overhaul to this. So right now, if you've got a book that was, say, written in an iBooks author, you can have that there. But what about your parent community that all have Android devices? You can export it out of iBooks Author into a different format, whether that's an EPUB, a PDF, whatever, and also post that up there. If you do get it published to the Apple Store, then you can put the link to that there. And so you can have this one book entry where it lists all the different files, and you can download it, as well as the link off to the Apple Store. Commenting is all there. Right now we're moderating all the comments just to make sure everything's okay. There has to be a more sustainable model than that, but we haven't found it. And so what we're about to do is go through a big rewrite and just make it look a little bit nicer, where we can have featured books and featured content and little stars up in the corner and things like that. But right now we're just trying to find more people to join because it's a great, simple platform, and hopefully gives kids and teachers the voice without having to jump through a lot of hoops.
Who's we, Sheldon? When you say we, like, are you all in the crowd? Yeah.
Right now, currently the we is me and whoever else happens to want to join.
I see.
So,
okay.
From an infrastructure
It's a
point of
humble
view,
we.
yeah, right now from the infrastructure point of view, it's all hosted at the International School of Prague. As I mentioned, when we were in Indonesia, there was a strong team of people, and we had people like Mark Marshall, Tricia Friedman, Jocelyn Sutherland. Like, we had lots of great people involved. But then when that school sort of dissolved somewhat, people scattered, and so it's actually been, the project's been fairly quiet for, it's starting to pick up again, but for about the past year, because we were all in transition. So the more people we can get involved, the better, and that's from a helping to organize, helping to plan, helping to redesign, or just even getting staff and students to put books in. It's a nice little community, and we're under no illusion that we're not trying to go head-to-head with the Apple Store or the Play Store or anything like that. We just want a nice, easy-to-use tool for classroom teachers.
Well, I've been thinking, my personal journey in this has been kind of on the other side of it. Like, where do I put these books that our kids have made that are stuck on iPads?
Yes.
Right? So that they can share them when they're stuck on the iPad. And we've evolved this sort of put it in Drive, make it public or anyone with the link, and then put a link on your blog. And so as you were talking, I was like, well, what's the difference between hosting it on WriteNow Books or hosting it in my Google Drive and linking to it in my blog? But then there's the other side of it. Well, and if there is a difference, I'd like to hear it. But the other side of it is you've got 1,000-book, it's a wealth of books. It's a huge resource for students to see other students writing and be motivated and inspired.
Well, there's a couple of things that come with that. First of all, the first books that we posted up were fairly dodgy. You'd get things like, let's have an entire class of 20 kids all write their chapter summary for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and we'll all post that online as books. And so we've tried as much as we can to take that down now, and so the quality is getting better and better.
Okay.
As far as your point of why don't you just host in a drive? You can absolutely do that, and you can share that link around with your community. Aside from the fact you're going to have a big, just long list of titles that's there, that's great for your community, but I'm not in your community. How do I find it?
Right.
Whereas right now, everything that gets put up, we store the student's full name in the background, but we only post their first name. So it's their first name in school, so you can sort by school, you can sort by genre, you can filter by grade level, you can filter by language. I mean, right now we've got, just taking a quick look, 2, 4, 6. We've got books in 13 languages right now.
Wow.
And so you can say, show me all upper elementary books in Vietnamese, go. And just that filterability gives you, there's a scalability to it. And the more people that start to use this, the more options there are. And so if you just want to share stuff, you're a classroom teacher, you just want to share stuff with your parent community, and that's what you define your authentic audience to be, it'll work. For me, my thought is I want kids to have their stuff as far as they want it to go. And so that's beyond just a Google Drive. And just seeing from this personally, seeing the effect that it's had on a couple of kids where they post something up and their grandparents on the other side of the world sends a positive comment on it.
Yeah.
How much that kid wrote in the 3 months after that is incredible.
So that's my experience with. I actually published to the iTunes bookstore right when it became available, and it was like a 2.5 month process to get everything up, and they were learning, and I was learning, and I mean there wasn't even you couldn't even talk to anybody at the beginning. There was
it's better now.
Oh yeah, and I saw it grow because I was publishing student books and stuff, and it got way faster, and the communication got way better. But like what you were talking about, what really made the whole thing worth it was, my kindergartners were publishing these books, and they were just having conversations about, oh, okay, so, do you want to make this book free, or do you want to, charge people for it? Like, what features do we have that will allow more people to have access to this book? Like, put in audio so that people that can't read, can listen to it. They had all these really cool things, and then they really, really, I mean, it really hit home when it went live in the store, and then they were getting reviews. So they were reading this stuff, and so it was like when you say publish for an authentic audience, it was their granddad that was writing the review, but still to them it was like on the internet. And people were actually commenting on it, so this sense of accomplishment was over the top. And then they, and then also this idea of publishing or having a voice, that other people that can reach other people. That's just what they're kind of growing up with. This understanding of I can actually, reach out in the world and connect with people.
Right.
So,
and absolutely, and that's the thing is if you're writing something and it's only between you and your teacher and it might go home to your parents at the end of the term. Are you actually publishing? Are you actually an author, or are you just journaling? And that's fine if that's what your goal is. But if your goal is to actually write something for a real audience, you got to get it out to the audience.
Yeah.
And
the audience isn't like posting it up on the bulletin board in the hallway. I had this really big debate with this writing teacher where like she discounted blogs. Like the kids were blogging and we were sharing stuff, we were publishing books, but unless it went on on the bulletin board in the hallway, then it wasn't like real. Because you could touch it. And I was like, what? You're driving me nuts. Right. But one thing I wanted to ask Sheldon, you mentioned this earlier. Now, can people like tag their books? Do they put tags in when they publish their books? So can you search for like subject or like you said you could do language, but can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, before I get into that, because maybe we can try a screen sharing here in a second and see if we can totally break this.
Break the internet.
Yeah. I first started talking about this publicly. Actually, I think it was the Learning 2 in Singapore. Was that 2013? Something like that. And what I said during that was, this is probably only a 2 or 3 year project, and then everything else is going to get caught up, and it's going to be so easy, and we won't need this anymore. We still need this. I don't think we're there yet. And so the other nice thing on this is that we had one school say, can you actually just send us a copy of all the books that we've published up? We kind of lost track of it. And we're running this locally, so we can just grab it all and send it back out. So it's, I still think there's a bit of a need for this. But all right, let me see if I can turn screen sharing on here. All right, how's that?
Almost.
Almost, sort of?
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Cool. Sorry, I'm back. Network issue.
Oh.
Okay.
All right, there we go. So this is a couple of things that we put onto this. Is first of all, we wanted everyone, anything that gets put up, you should be able to take and remix and mash and do whatever you like with it. And so that's why we've posted everything, unless you say otherwise, under this the Creative Commons license, just so we can share stuff a little bit more. And these, I can't remember what school these are from. I think they're out of Germany somewhere. But so you can see right away, not only can you scroll through 27 pages of books, but you can also do a text search. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't search the text of the book, but it searches whatever description you put in about the book. Our languages down to from Batak to Chinese to Japanese, and these are all active languages. There's at least one book in all of these languages that's in there right now. Audience, genre, and then there's also the free tagging that goes with this as well. And so you can go through and tag it however you like. So clearly we've got some PYP schools in here. We've got some things that are tagged with the exhibition. And I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure whose book this is right now. But if we click on Ryan's book here, so you can see he published it in February. It's from the International School of Dusseldorf. It's a general audience and travel and adventure. He hasn't tagged it, and there's only an iBook version that's there. And so, but then you click on it, it downloads it right away. One of the other things that we found with, we looked at other software to try and help us with this, is that everything wanted you to log in to download. And knowing that a lot of the users on this were going to be under the age of, say, 12, we didn't want people to log in. We didn't want to have to go through the account creation and put in books into shopping carts and then download it. We wanted it just to be an open website. So I click on this, it's going to download to my desktop or my iPad right away. But we can also then go and just take a look and see what's already on the iTunes store. And so the fact that people are publishing things to the iTunes store, we didn't want them to stop that from having it come here as well. And so you can see there's clearly a class project on the digestive system or on body systems there. But so this is the project. So it's a fairly simple project, and its only goal is connecting people. So so I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah.
Marcello?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So obviously the next thing that comes, at least in my mind, is how do you get a book up there? I mean, what does it involve when you have a class of 20 and they all write
65.
books? Yeah.
65. Yeah.
iBooks, and so how do you get them up there?
Okay. Well, hold on one sec. If I can get out of screen sharing here.
Let's see. Click Add a New Book. Nope.
Yeah, I'm not logged into that one right now. Let me see here. Hold on one sec. Okay. So let me see if this will let me log in while we're here. Basically, this is built on a WordPress backend, so anyone who's ever done any blogging should do okay with this. So effectively, actually, if I can log in here, if it'll let me do it, then I'll show you how we do it.
I also want to hear about the sort of copyright and Creative Commons and sort of like the philosophy behind how you guys have approached that.
This was another one that we sort of struggled with. Is how do we go through and give the people who are posting the books their let them keep control over their content and things like that, and that was tough because we've got people coming from so many different areas. So let me back up first and just show you the.
I'm trying to get you sidetracked, Sheldon. I'm asking you like 3 things
Too many
at the same
questions at
time.
once.
You're such a great host, Ben.
All right. So basically, this is the ugly way of doing it. You put in your title, you put in your book description, you type in first name, last name, contact email, grade level, link to your files, type in your tags, and is this book in Dutch and French? Off you go. Which school are you from? Let's say you're from Johannesburg, and off you go. And that's it. It's online. It's basically a really tricked out WordPress blog, and that's about it.
Yeah. Did you customize that?
Yes,
that's awesome.
It's using it's called the toolset plugins, and so it's all custom post types and custom screens.
Okay.
So.
And the teacher does that for every kid, or I guess,
yes.
right? Okay.
Now this is one where, depending on what your school structure is like, we're pretty flexible. What we didn't want to have open is have 1,000 kids from different schools trying to post books, and then have us be responsible for sorting through the content, or when there's a takedown notice and things like this. So if you are one teacher and you've got 150 kids and you want to get some help with other teachers, TAs, responsible students, whatever, but we're just trying to avoid, since it's a small project, we're just trying to avoid the free-for-all.
Yeah, you need a point person or a point committee or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's how we started trying to manage this. Hold on here. Let me see if I can get back out to something more interesting to see.
And Sheldon, you said it's hosted locally. Sorry, I was out there for a second. It's hosted locally, yeah?
Yeah, we started hosting it in Indonesia. It's now hosted here in the Czech Republic, and if we can ever get around to it, we'd like to move it up into the cloud a little bit. But we're also kind of running into the limits of our technical knowledge as well. There's people out there with 700-800 megabyte books, which is a beastly upload. If you've got something with a lot of photo, a lot of video, and so we're starting to cross over into that territory where we're going to need a little bit more help than we've got in-house. And so right now what we're doing with that is that if your book is over 500 megabytes in size, which is still a large book, then you send it to us and we upload it for you.
I see.
That's sort of how we're doing it. Most books are much smaller than that, but there's a few that are sizable.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds like a good senior project.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're trying to get to.
Sheldon, I have a question. So we just published our literary magazine.
Yep.
We could publish it here as well, right? The off-tangent one, the one we just launched, and it's kids' work, and it's Jabiz and I.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
We actually had one school, I think it was Saigon South, that they made ebooks on some, I can't remember what it was some website somewhere, so they didn't even actually have the physical book file, but they wanted to drive more business their way. And so what they did is they went through, filled out all the stuff on WriteNow, and just put the link to where the book was online. So then they're sort of joining the community, even though they don't have the file. But we really are trying to be just a connector between students and staff and whoever wants to read their stuff. we're not really tracking hits right now and seeing where our traffic is going, but you know, we 742 books is not a bad place to start, and we're hoping that this is starting to grow again, and that we'll be able to cross over that 1,000 books within the next year.
Yeah.
And are there other people? I mean, surely there's something like this out there, and surely you did your research. So
yeah, there are a lot of.
Just plug into something else that's already there, and they can manage all that, all the mess for you.
We couldn't find anything that really fit the bill, and that was people were able to download without big login things. You can't create an account unless you're 13 years old. Now you've got to go log in on your iPad and get parental permission and download it, and that sort of stuff. Or places where they were really concerned about the editing side of it. You know,
Okay.
I'm sorry, your book's got a spelling mistake in it. It can't come up. Like, well, you know, the kid's 7.
Yeah.
This is going to happen. And really, is that really where we want to focus our time?
That's
We're
cool.
not trying to be Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like there's a lot of great stuff on YouTube, and there's a lot of garbage out there too. But it's up to the end user to decide to make that judgment. And we're running with the same philosophy: is that we don't want to be the people who are putting judgment on the content. That's up to you. We have played around with the idea of having a teacher certified or teacher vetted checkbox,
Like
so
a
that
peer reviewed or something.
yeah, so that you could go through it and someone other than the author has gone through and said, this is decent quality, or this is well edited, or whatever it happens to be. But again, we're too small. We haven't found a way to make that work. To be honest, if there was another service that did something like this, then we would happily transfer all this stuff over. Because really, this is not a get rich quick scheme. There's all we're doing is losing money on this one.
Dang.
So, but
You'd rather
I
not.
wanted to get in on the ground floor.
exactly.
Yeah, I thought that's what this hangout was about.
Stock options.
For example, last year we had our grade 6 EAL students, very new to English. They had buddied up with some of our kindergarten classes, and they were co-authoring a sort of get-to-know-you introduction book. That's a book that's really niche. It's not going to sell anywhere else, but parents and the kids all wanted it. Everyone was really proud of it. They were proud of the partnership. They were proud of what they created, and so that sort of thing needs a place beyond just the bulletin board.
Totally agree. Yep, absolutely.
I'm wondering about, I'm hearing all this, the back end work and how you publish books and stuff. I'd really like to hear a little bit about how you worked with collaboration with the teachers and how did you, you said this is something we or I or whatever it happens to be. I'd love to know, how did you get teachers involved? How do you kind of, is there a literacy coach involved in it? Is there what types of things have you done or is being done at your school to kind of promote the excitement around it? And then once the books are published, how do you get people to, so you've got 740 books that are published.
Yeah.
How do you encourage people to read them and comment and that stuff?
Well, it's interesting that when we started, it was actually remarkably easy. People were, we had been doing PD on iBooks, eBooks, whatever you want to call them, in different platforms, and people were seeing this is interesting. Great, I can write a book, and then I can not only just put a picture in it, but I can also put a video in it, or do a video introduction, or voiceovers, whatever. And so that multimedia aspect they really saw was powerful. But then how do you share it? And so they were really clamoring for this. And the school that I was at that really started working with this, it was a phenomenal staff of really highly engaged people, and so it was an easy sell. And so once this started taking off, we then formed a committee for this WriteNow 1000 project, and we were doing lots of staff PD, and people were just clamoring for it, and it grew really organically. Now that we've all shifted, I think everyone's finding it's a bit of a tougher sell, because now you've got to convince people that this is worthwhile. And it's not just the platform, but the whole book writing side of it as well. So what's the advantage of this over just regular writing that we always do? Or how does this compare into blogging? And back and forth. And so it's a slower go here. We haven't published an awful lot here in Prague yet. And so we don't have any literacy coaches involved. What we're doing right now is we're really relying on the passion people, the people who look at this and say, yes, I see the power of this is what I can do. And so that's why we've got a couple of people at this school, a couple of people at this one, and it's a really grassroots, organic growth. What we find is that with some schools, one person will get involved, and it'll just eventually peter out, and then at other schools, someone else will see it, and it'll just sort of explode in that community for a while. And so it's a bit of a mixed bag as far as success goes that way.
Yeah, I think it'll be about the seasons, right? If you're teaching workshop or any kind of writing anything, you'll have like a cycle where kids are drafting, revising, and then there'll be a time where they'll publish. What I'm interested in is how do you embed the digital literacy stuff throughout, and then it's not just the publishing, that's the pocket for it. Yeah, so that's probably why also it's not like all the time somebody's publishing, because the units also run its course, I'm thinking.
Well, and I also think, depending on the school that you're coming from, just that redefinition of what authentic audience means.
Yeah, absolutely.
We still have a lot of people who think the authentic, well, I'm the teacher, I'm the authentic audience, and you'll get to take it home to your parents in 6 weeks. That's authentic audience.
With a grade.
Yeah, exactly.
Big red.
And so the discussions that come around this of, okay, that kid might be 8, but they really don't care other than for that fleeting moment of what your opinion about their writing is. If they can have their cousin, their grandparent, their whoever, that friend of theirs who left the school last year and is now on the other side of the world, if they can have them see it, and even if you're not seeing the comment stream, they have a Skype chat with them and say, hey, I read your book, that was kind of cool. What that does to the motivation of that child to write, that's what I want to see happen right there. And so...
And what kind of strategies have you seen that have been successful in schools where, you know, I mean, of course this is all great, and how do you, or how have you seen teachers use WriteNow to get people to read the books? Like, are there strategies that people use, like you've got to read 3, or make sure that you comment, or send it out to your friends, or...
Yeah, there's been a couple of different strategies that have worked pretty well. The one that works the least is, hey, we post it up online and let's just see what happens. I think the thing with anything like this is that there has to be a marketing component to it. You've got to push it. And so we've seen some teachers go through and they've got all the class stuff up there, and what they'll do is they'll send a link out to parents. Check out all of our class books, and feel free to send this on to your extended family. Or send it right off to mom and dad and say, you should see what your kid just did. Here's the link. Send it as far and wide as you can.
You have to advocate. You have to
advocate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the things... Sorry.
Let me just finish off this one. One of the other things that's worked pretty well is when people publish stuff, then just sending it out to the rest of the staff, even people who have absolutely nothing to do with it as well. Sorry.
Sheldon, I was just giving you a hard time. I love hearing this. Well, I was going to say, you said the marketing component is, I think, is really key, because what we did when we published in kindergarten, we actually wrote a collaborative book with a school in Japan, and so we had a publishing party where we invited all the parents to come in, and then we Skyped with the other class, and all their parents came in.
What a great idea.
And so it just kind of creates a little bit of a buzz, and the kids have their chests puffed out because they're like super proud of it, and then you take pictures and you put it on your class blog, and and then it kind of goes out in the newsletter, and it's like you said, it's sort of that marketing thing, and you just look for ways to sort of celebrate what's actually happening, because I don't think, like what you were saying, Maureen, I don't know if people actually fully understand like actually what's going on and the value that you're adding.
Well,
go ahead.
A couple of other things that, along that same vein, is we had one teacher bring in a cake. In the same way that when your movie is released, you've got the red carpet and the Oscar party. They did that for all their class books. We had another teacher where she had the kids take their book cover and then put a little QR code that linked off to the site, and they created their own little advertisement and posted those around the school. We had one teacher that actually had the kids put the QR codes on a T-shirt, and they were all wearing their shirts around.
That's awesome.
But either way, it was just driving interest. I mean, how do you know that there's a new whatever J.K. Rowling book out there? Someone's told you about it. You've seen an advertisement. It's been online. You've seen a poster. And so, how are you getting it out there? Like, they don't just publish it and put it on the shelf and hope for the best. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out with this is there any way that we can, things that are recently commented or get likes or whatever, have it showcase on here, but it is about getting the word out. And whether you do that internally within your class, have the kids walk around, you read my book with the link on it, whatever, but it's people to the writing.
Yeah, so we just launched our middle school literary magazine, like I mentioned, right? And at first, the kids were like, "Oh yeah, let's just have pizza during lunch." The books were like $20, so we were like, ah. So what we needed to do was convince our kids that what they did was like amazing, and we had this launch party. Nobody thought anyone would show up, but people did, and we have like 7 books left. So it's the same thing,
Wow.
right? You have to have some. Yeah, we sold them all. We're paying our loan, and it's all the kids. We had like a bunch of kids who just filmed the whole thing, and I don't know. It was really magical. I think it's convincing them to advocate for their work, giving them a space to do it, and then branding it as something fun, and designing that, right? So making it look really professional, or telling them that it's art, like it's a piece of art what you're doing. So
Well, I think it goes beyond just the actual writing and publishing. I mean, they're learning about so much more than just that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know if that gets communicated. Oh, that, that's cool. There's a website you can publish things. People, oh, okay, whatever. No one's ever going to read it. But like what you just talked about, Paula, and Sheldon, you said marketing. You gotta actually, paint that whole picture of actually what's going on.
Yes.
Right.
And brand it a certain way.
Yeah, there's a point of pride in this as well. That getting those kids to say, I wrote this, and people are actually valuing it. We had one teacher who was a little unsure of all of this, and so she started off with the traditional, let's all make our big stapled together A4 cut in half book, and the kids wrote their story and they drew their pictures, and that was it. And then they went and they turned it into an ebook. And it's interesting the feedback on when kids would go to the paper book, but which ones they talked about. And so they would flip through one in class, but they would also talk about how they had this great published book online, and what does that mean to them. And so you can do, so there's an interesting discussion there as well. Even this was I think grade 1. So what's the difference? They're both books, but is one more important than the other? When would you use them? I mean, just the unpacking of that from a curriculum perspective is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because right now too we're like, okay, how do we get more writers in? So we're coming up with an online version of it, and the kids are defining the ideology, the niche, like what's it gonna look like, and
well, I think the marketing thing is also really interesting as well, because this is where our PLNs come in, and so
absolutely.
So I was saying there was a couple of language teachers that went through and they created these. It's that pretty traditional language assignment of, okay, go make a travel book to your country in your first language as well as the language that you're learning. But they turned it into ebooks, and now they're online. Well, they're great little introductory travel guides. And so you see those, you know that you've got a Chinese teacher down the hall. It's like, well, hey, let's take these and bring them in. And so you start, when you can start advocating for things like that and pushing things into other authentically created resources, it's kind of amazing. I mentioned that staff chili book, which is, again, it was kind of a nothing thing. There's a bunch of chili recipes in there. But what that did to staff morale was kind of amazing. And so think about all the throwaway stuff we do in PD days.
I was thinking of professional development, like, you're actually writing stuff down and publishing it so you can go back to it, and you're actually formalizing, what you're doing, and telling everybody, actually, hey, this is what we're doing for professional development.
And I mean, what sort of resume fodder is that? Is like I publish some small, locally produced ebooks for my staff community, but also the sharing side of that's there, the valuing of what you bring to the table. It's not ephemeral anymore. It's not just said in that room and then it's gone. It's there. There's a semi-permanence to it, and so I think even getting staff to do this is worthwhile.
So, but I guess what you're saying, Sheldon, and what Maureen was asking is really important, right? How do you get, like, you have an authentic audience, but I think authentic right now is still, hey guys, like, read this, and then of course what we want is kids just publishing and just getting like that authentic. I guess authentic as a definition is there's a spectrum. If you're asking parents to comment, is that authentic? I guess right now, why not? Like, it's still better than just the English teacher.
Well,
so it's a process.
And it depends on the individual as well. I mean, if you're talking about a 6-year-old, having their parents comment on it might be great. For the 8-year-old, it might be their cousin on the other side of the world. If you're a 15-year-old, it might be person two
Their
classes
peers,
over.
yeah.
It might be
Yeah.
their peers. And so
Absolutely.
there's a variability on that as well. And then you can see on the site there's a few schools that have clearly said, find one or two other classmates' books, read them, and comment on them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get comments like, really in-depth, this was fantastic, you made me think, whatever. And then you get other ones are, you forgot the E on that word on page 4. Really sort of low-level comments. But
which brings us to, like, we have to model that and unpack that for kids, I guess, right? It has to, there's a teaching point somewhere that says, here's how you comment, and it's like a work in progress.
Yeah, and it's also the idea of you are part of, you're a contributor, and you're contributing to something, to like a shared knowledge, because like, you know, like my kids, when they hear about an app and they go, first thing they do is they scroll down and they look how many stars it has, and then they read the comments. You know, because they trust other people to sort of vet it for them. And so that's a mindset that like people of our generation might not be bought into or have a clear understanding of that, because that wasn't the way that things kind of went. You know, there weren't user ratings so much, you know, when we were growing up. So we just kind of had to.
They're just teacher ratings. Yeah, so I guess
exactly.
the idea really is, if we convince our teachers that learning is social, it's authentic, it has to be empowered. I mean, whether you're microblogging or whether you're publishing a book, if at the very base of it we get it, that it's social, and it's everything you guys have been saying, right? Like, that's it. That's what it is. Learning is, you have to share it, and then it can't just be you and me reading it.
Well, and the how much of that audience and purpose is the purview of the author rather than the person the publisher who's giving the assignment. And I think that's through this whole thing. That's the one thing that keeps coming up when you say this is all about an audience that's relevant to that child or to that person. And the number of people who push back and say, well, but it's the assignment. I'm the audience. You know, and there's a mind shift in there. Is that when someone sees a kid who's actually engaged from feedback they've received from someone who's nowhere near where that classroom is, it's transformative to that teacher. It's
Absolutely.
really powerful.
Absolutely.
And it's when a kid finds that passion, and it might be fleeting, but it might also be the only time you see it in this particular subject area. I was that kid. I hated to write, and I think I'm a decent writer, but whenever I'd write something, it would be for the teacher. And at the end of the day, you know, I didn't really care all that much what the teacher thought. Would it have been different if there was actually people that I cared about who were reading my stuff?
Marcello.
Because, something
you've been wanting to say something for the last 10 minutes.
Something that's kind of interesting that you've talked about, Sheldon, is the community aspect of this.
Yep.
So back to the kid keeping it in Drive, right,
Yes.
in their Google Drive, and then you publish it on your blog, right, and you send the link. So now, like I kind of tell my middle school students, when you start blogging, you're starting to contribute to humanity's understanding of the world. You're out there with everyone else.
Yeah.
But they're kind of standing out there by themselves.
Yeah.
Kind of yelling out into the night what they think, right? Yeah. And who's
and
hearing them?
Someone listens.
Yeah, maybe the people they send the link to, right? Similar to once you've posted the books, like you share the link. The difference, I think, is that it would be really motivating to show kids that you're now part of a tribe of 742 authors who are also like you, and you guys are all. It kind of it's empowering to think you're joining a movement of published kids, and there's lots of books out there like yours, and some are simpler than yours, and some are more complex than yours, and so it's. That community aspect must be very empowering rather than standing there.
What a great point.
Kind of by yourself.
Right. Okay.
You know you're out.
We have like not a lot of time left, and we kind of we're tossing around the idea of just sharing some learning 2 takeaways, because like Marcello, Paula, Sheldon, we're all at Learning 2 in Milan. So does anybody want to add anything else real quickly to this conversation before we move into?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll definitely put Sheldon's contact information in the more info under this movie on YouTube, and so you can get in touch with him if you have interest in this.
Yeah, I just put my my Twitter handle in the lower third. Definitely, anyone who wants to be involved, even if you're not sure, the onboarding process is about 10 minutes long. We just sit down and have just a quick talk about security, copyright, and how this is all going to work, and then we just get the names of people who from your school who want to join up, and off you go. And we're really hands off. So even if you're not sure and you just want to try it for one project, or you've got that one kid who you think I want to play with just that kid publishing something, just send me a note. We're happy to have you.
Cool.
And it doesn't have to be iBooks, right?
No, it takes right now. It takes links, PDFs, .mobis, EPUBs, .iba files, and if you've got something different, send it our way, and we'll figure it out.
Okay, fantastic.
Great. Thank you, Sheldon. That's cool.
Yep,
Thanks.
absolutely. Thanks.
Maureen, you want to add anything before we move to the next segment?
No, Sheldon, thanks very much. It's great.
No problem.
I
Thanks.
love
All
what
right.
you do. Congratulations.
Maureen, you're still fuzzy.
I know. I don't know.
We're waiting for the
Turns
hey.
out-
I just want to see you.
I can see all of you. I know. I've been trying to clean this, and it's not working.
All right. Who wants to go first? Learning to takeaway, just like a real quick 3-minute thing.
Well, it was my second successive little learning too. You know, I went to Singapore, then I went to Addis, and then I went to Milan. So it was great. You know, it's the community, teachers teaching teachers. It was really great. Without, I don't know the details. If you've not been to, I guess if you've not been to a learning to, it would take some explaining of exactly what happens there. But just the great energy. I brought 2 teachers from here, and they loved it. And
Oh, yeah.
one of them now has 65 elementary kids every morning playing with all the robots that before learning to were just in boxes in the library.
Wow.
And it's bonkers in there because he went to Warren's robot session. So it's fantastic. It was really great.
I'll jump in. I mean, I've been going to learning to for a long time, and as always, the only way I can describe it is bucket filling. Professionally, it recharges you, top to bottom.
Yeah.
You come away energized and walking on air. That's it.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, I think it was an honor to be part of the very first one in Europe. And aside from it re-energizing, I think it also pushes you, like it forces you to create, it forces you to like just get out of your comfort zone, and pushes you to think about your own practice and see more than what you can share. It's like, what can you put out there that people can also share what they are good at, and then just bring that out. Like, it was fantastic. The school was amazing. Like, the organizers, they did a great job. There's a real community there, and I think people are pumped. I'm so glad to have been part of it. Yeah. And I think it's evolving, right? It's no longer like, I'm not sure what it was in the beginning, but it's definitely not about tools. It's really about community and building trust and finding out what's best for kids, I guess. So it's not technology, like whatever. Like, I think it was relationships. So I loved it.
We had a modern language teacher from my school come, and I'm not sure what he was expecting, but he approached me at the end of the first day and said, "This isn't a technology conference. There's like other language teachers here. This is all about learning. This is amazing."
Yes.
And, there was an excitement there.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's called learning too. It's not like technology too.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think the original title was Learning 2.0, so I think that it associated it with tech, and no matter how much people say it's not a tech conference, it's still a tech conference.
And it's the tech people who go, right? So, like, so it's in Warsaw next year, right?
Yeah, and they're excited. And then they have one in South America as well.
Yeah, so, Quito and Saigon in the fall, Quito and Saigon this fall, and then Europe in the Warsaw in the spring.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was super jealous of everybody. You know, I mean, one thing that's really cool about it is like the Twitter stream is so active. You know, when you're there, so it's good because you can like sort of, you know, get the. I mean, it was just so positive, and people were like tweeting out so much cool stuff. And but at the same time, you're like super jealous that like you can't be there and hang out with everybody. You know, but I guess it's the next best thing.
I think the other thing too, like so Asia, there are like 15 leaders. It's huge and it's amazing. Over there, where there were only like 5. How many were we? 6 of us.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Like
so I don't know. Like we were able to kind of really campfire the whole thing. We watched each other's talks from start to finish. Like everyone was involved in everything. So it was pretty amazing. It was a different kind of like high, because I love the one in Singapore as well. And, well, in every single one, but that's just me gushing right now.
But there was also enough people that that you had a lot of diversity as well. I mean, there's 150 people, something like that.
190, I think.
190. So it was a good size.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, any closing thoughts or?
No, I think thanks to
you guys,
Sheldon, for coming out with giving us all that information. I mean,
thanks.
We got to get this going around, because I think tons of people will be interested in this. This is something that keeps going. Is what do we do with these books? What do we do with these books? You know, we've repurposed old iPads and put them in the library with all the books on, and it's still stuck on iPads. So this is, I think, eventually it's going to be worked out in some big way. But you're right, it still hasn't. You know?
Until then, it's something we need. I mean, I think that analogy of YouTube books, put up what your school values and see how much we can collaborate and pull out the good bits and ignore the stuff that isn't so good for you. I think it's a decent model.
Yep.
Sure. And the Innovation and Learning series lives on. Some people thought it was dead.
Thanks, guys.
How wrong they were.
Thanks. This was fun.
So thanks so much, everyone, for turning up. And I'm not even going to say we're going to do one more before the end of the year, but who knows? We might, right? Okay, Ben,
thanks,
you got to shut us down here.
I will shut us down. Thanks, guys. It was awesome to see you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
I'll try and clear myself up here.
Yeah.